everyone. Welcome to this day in Philly Sports History for June 12th, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Wednesday edition of the podcast. Happy hump day to everyone out there. Let's start, as we always do, with a recap of yesterday's question of, I probably shouldn't say always, because we don't always start with the recap of yesterday's question of the day. So it should be more like, let's start like we do most of the time. Sorry, just kind of thought of that as I was going. But anyway, a recap of yesterday's question of the day. I asked you, as a kid, what was the best day of the year? 67% of you said it was indeed the last day of school. Birthday and Christmas were pretty evenly split. I did ask my kids, who both said, one said Christmas, one said her birthday, and then changed it to, well, today's pretty cool because it's the last day of school too. But I think those are the top 3 days in any kid's life. As always, thank you for participating in the question of the day. There'll be another one later in the show. Quick housekeeping. The nickname tournament is coming. We are less than 2 weeks away. June 24th, that kicks off. 64 nicknames, 4 regions, 2 matchups a day. You pick the winners and name the ultimate Philly sports nickname. The selection show will be on June 21st. That way you get the whole weekend to rip me and let me know how terrible I am at picking. But that all goes as part of the fun. Looking to record that this week, get the brackets up. Still haven't figured out what that's going to look like on or I shouldn't say look like, what that's going to be for the audio podcast, but we'll figure something out just because I'm playing around with some ways to actually show the brackets as I'm talking about them. But stay tuned for that coming June 21st. That's the Selection Friday show, and then the tournament kicks off June 24th. Best way to stay in the loop, subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mont, leave comments, all that other good stuff. The more streams and interactions we have, the better it is. I'm also on social media, Twitter and TikTok, Jimbo_Mont, Instagram at Philly Jimbo. I'm also on Facebook, and I've been putting stuff on LinkedIn too, so connect with me there, especially if you have some connections. Always looking to network that way. And of course, if you have any or need any information on the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame induction ceremony, tickets, induction class, as well as information about being a sponsor or donating something for the silent auction, that information is in the description. All right, one last housekeeping thing that I wanted to mention, and I usually wouldn't do something like this, but it just drove me insane. And I rip a lot of times. I rip the sports radio stations here and sports talk and everything. And yesterday was the perfect example of why I do that. The WIP afternoon show is doing their Mount Rushmore of Philly sports. And yesterday was the the Phillies. And Elliott Shores Park was on. And it's the most asinine, ridiculous take I've ever heard. Mike Schmidt was not on his Mount Rushmore. And I'm like, this has to be a joke. Not because I'm a huge Mike Schmidt fan, but because he is hands down, far and away, the greatest player to ever play for the Phillies. The Mount Rushmore discussion starts with him. And I get that it's dog days of summer. It's an Eagles town. Everybody's trying to get ratings and get listeners and everything. But, man, that is just a ridiculous take for the sake of being a take. And then Spike Eskin was trying to cover it up. Be like, oh, no, he's like that. Because people were ripping him. And he's like, no, he's like that. And I'm like, no, there's no way. Like, that is 100% shtick. I don't buy it. There is no way you can have a discussion. And to me, there's really not a lot of debate on the Mount Rushmore Phillies players anyway. I think you got Schmitty, you got J-Roll, and you got Steve Carlton, and then the debate happens on who takes that third spot. A lot of people saying Chase Utley. I was having some intelligent discussions on Twitter last night with folks about this, and I think for the most part, it comes down to like Utley, Ryan Howard, and I'm going to throw Dick Allen in there as sort of that final spot, the Teddy Roosevelt on the Mount Rushmore. But I don't think you can't have the discussion without Mike Schmidt, Steve Carlton, and Jimmy Rollins. Boom. right there. And I'm not going back to Grover Cleveland Alexander and guys like that. And no, to me, the Mount Rushmore are the 4 best. And honestly, I get why Teddy Roosevelt's on Mount Rushmore. I don't know if Teddy Roosevelt was the 4th best president, but I digress. But for me, the debate is that final spot. And I mean, I would probably lean slightly to Ryan Howard for a couple of reasons. One, because of how dominant he was during that period. And yes, it was a shorter period than the other guys, and he couldn't sustain it after the injury. But that dude was absolutely dominant. And like looking at today's players and the way they don't care about strikeouts, Ryan Howard sort of was the guy that did that. But Howard could hit doubles. He was clutch. I think that's what a lot of people forget. There's so many clutch moments in his career that often get overlooked because there's Ryan Howard and Donovan McNabb get treated the same way in Philly for some reason. No respect, and there's just a ton of hate, and I don't get why. Dick Allen did win an MVP, but he didn't win it with the Phillies, and that to me is why he's slightly ahead. I love Chase Utley. Chase Utley is probably the most likable fan favorite Philly of all time. Great player too. I still will die on this hill that Jimmy Rollins has a far better case for the Hall of Fame than Chase Utley does. I don't think Chase Utley was the best player on any of those teams. So I think if you're doing it strictly on, and I'm sure they didn't give the parameters or whatever, but I think Utley would be the 3rd guy behind Ryan Howard, Dick Allen for that final spot on the Mount Rushmore. But to even entertain a Mount Rushmore with Mike Schmidt not even on it is just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And again, I get it. I'm trying to do the same thing, get people to listen, but I'm trying to do it in a way because I'm trying to come off as intelligent and not just a Momo who is just whatever. And again, I get it, and I actually respect him and like a lot of his Eagles coverage and things like that. So it's not like I hate the dude, but come on, dude. Like, that is just a ridiculous hot take for the sake of being a hot take. The other debate is where Bryce belongs on this, and I don't think he's quite been here long enough. I cannot put him yet above any of those guys. He wins the World Series this year. We're having a different discussion in November, but I just wanted to kind of go through and mention that because I just thought, like, that is why people rip the sports radio talk stations here, because it's like, I get it. There's nothing going on. The Mount Rushmore, I mean, it's a cliche. It's been played out. But, I mean, it's a fun discussion piece. And like I said, the guys I was talking on Twitter to last night, we're having intelligent discussions. Like, I actually had a legitimate good discussion about a guy for that final spot. We all agreed, Schmidt, Rollins, Carlton, and then having that intelligent debate about Ryan Howard versus Chase Utley. And it's not, I'm not saying Howard is far and away the final guy, but like my rationale behind it, and I don't know. But I can't even take you serious, anything you say about the Phillies after that, after you say Mike Schmidt is not on your Mount Rushmore. I mean, I could debate Carlton. I think there's no way you don't have the best pitcher in Phillies history on there. But, I mean, I could entertain that. But to me, Schmidt and J-Roll are George Washington, Abraham Lincoln on the Mount Rushmore. We can argue the Teddy Roosevelt and Thomas Jefferson. I'm fine with that. But you don't mess with George. You don't mess with Abe. That's Schmitty and Rollins as far as I'm concerned. But let me know what you think. It's not an official question of the day, but just a thought. And again, I'm going on a longer rant than what I anticipated on this, but it just drives me crazy because I feel like, and maybe, I don't know, the guys that call in, those are the guys, I guess, that partake and they're kind of catering to. But, like, and maybe this is where I'm going to make my break into the mainstream. I don't know, but I'd rather have more intelligent conversations and discussions. Yes, we have fun. We have fun on this podcast all the time, but to not have Mike Schmidt on your Mount Rushmore of Phillies, and even if you're doing the most popular Phillies, maybe not so much when he was playing, but everybody knows Mike Schmidt. And Mike Schmidt, everybody loves him now. So I don't know. I've spent enough time on this, but let me know your thoughts on that. Am I being too hard on Elliott, or am I correct? And do we need intelligent sports talk in this city? And if we do, this is where you come for it. Spread the word. This is a ringing endorsement of why you need to listen every day and spread the word. All right. Lots of Phillies news today, and the big story yesterday was JT needing surgery. He's going to be out for a torn meniscus. I got the sense, and nobody really got the details of it, but it sounds very similar to Joe's injury. Dave Dombrowski said he's going to be out a month. I don't know. I mean, obviously, that's probably, maybe he's right, but 4 to 8 weeks. Now would be the time to do it, 100%. Rafael Marchand is called up. But I guess if anybody can come back in a month, it'll be JT. JT actually wanted to kind of play through it and has been playing through it. And I guess the team made him kind of get the surgery. But between Marchand and Stubbs, we'll see. Stubbs is hitting 173, but he's not getting regular playing time. Did get a hit last night and played solid defensively. Obviously, he's not JT defensively, but we'll see. I mean, I felt like last night it was the next man up mentality that this team has always had, which is good. Stubbs was solid. They won 4-1. Zach Wheeler was just absolutely dominant. You could tell he was a little rusty at the beginning of the game because he hates the extra time off that he had. But then once he settled in, he was money. Schwarber's heating up, hit 2 bombs, so hopefully that means June Schwarber is here. Schwarberfest, as Wawa likes to say. Matt Strahm has been lights out. 26 and 2/3 innings now of scoreless ball. Hasn't let up a run since March. And then it was good to see Jose Alvarado kind of redeem himself somewhat last night, getting the save. He did give up a hit, but I mean, that happens. So take a deep breath. I will say I'm not panicking yet, but I don't know. I said one of the things, if you go back to my Phillies preview, one of the areas of weakness I did say was backup catcher. And the thing is, everybody loves Stubbs. So you're going to mess with the team chemistry if you would bring out somebody in. But that leads to today's question of the day. 4 to 8 weeks. Dombrowski said 4. Let's go the long conservative route and say 8 weeks. Do the Phillies need to make a move for a backup catcher, or can they just kind of let it roll? They have a 10-game lead right now. I mean, it is June 12th, and they're up 10 games on the Braves. The schedule obviously is going to get a lot tougher. They got the Yankees, Orioles. The rest of this Red Sox series is going to be tough. The Dodgers are coming up soon. So do they need to explore, or do they just let it ride with a 10-game lead? That is today's question of the day. 267-495-8531. Get you in on the Back to the Future voice and text line. Text me. Leave a voicemail. Get that and anything else off your chest. But do the Phillies need to do some exploring for a backup catcher while JT is out? Let me know your thoughts. 267-495-8531. Get you in on the Back to the Future voice and text line. I've been telling you about Philly Goat. What can I say about the shoes that haven't already been said? You need to go check them out. The official start of summer is coming up, and these shoes are comfortable. They are perfect for summer. And don't worry, I know some people don't like to wear shoes without socks because their feet sweat. I am one of them. These canvas loafers are great. You get the no-show socks on Amazon. No harm, no foul. I've been wearing the Schmitties nonstop. They don't stink. My feet, it's perfect. So go check out Philly Goat for these canvas loafers. They got all kinds of styles. And like I said, my favorites are the fans, but the Schmitties, like I said, they match with everything. And just go check it out. And like I said, I thought the Cape Mays were going to be my go-to, and it's been the Schmitties. So go to phillygoat.com. Be sure to use the promo code Jim Montgomery at checkout for 10% off your order. That also helps out the podcast and helps us grow and gets that intelligent sports talk out there. But that's Philly Goat. Check out these canvas loafers. You won't be disappointed. All right, some Eagles news. if you believe in this, Christian McCaffrey is on the cover of Madden. Is the Madden curse still a thing? And I forget what site did it, but they did sort of a recap of the history of the cover. And the Madden curse was big early on in the days when they started putting players on. Not so much recently. So I don't know. If you believe in that, Christian McCaffrey, if you're a fantasy football guy, don't take him. And of course, I got the first pick in one of my drafts. So I am a Madden curse guy, so I'm going to think long and hard about taking Christian McCaffrey number 1, but that could bode well for the Eagles. And then I mentioned Donovan. I was having another conversation on Twitter just about the disrespect that Donovan gets, and sort of a bonus question of the day. If you had your choice between prime Donovan McNabb and Jalen Hurts, who are you going to take on this team? And I don't think it's a question to take Donovan. And the fact that he gets so disrespect, man, I don't get it. Like I said, him and Brian Howard are the two most disrespected athletes in Philadelphia sports history. Unless you're Elliott Shores Park, and then Mike Schmidt is right up there as well. Sixers news, and this is an interesting one. I saw this on, what was it? I want to make sure I credit the site, the Sixers Sense website. And Sportsnet New York is reporting that the Knicks likely are going to re-sign OG Anunoby. And that contract, though, due to his injury history, may have some clauses and incentives based on games played. And they brought up an interesting scenario where the Sixers theoretically could undercut the Knicks and offer him more guaranteed money and not with the incentives. I mean, I guess the Knicks could do the same thing, but they were looking, based on this report, to sign him with some of those incentives for games played and everything like that. Would they do it? It could also hurt the Knicks. I don't know if it's going to get him in here. I'm not opposed to it, but if your only reason for doing it is to hurt the Knicks, like that's like some Jerry Jones type shit there. Like you don't do things to hurt your rival. You do things to make your team better. But it's an interesting thought because OG was one of the guys I wanted at the trade deadline last year. So we'll see what happens. But if it means cutting out the incentives to offer him just like, here's your contract, I would do that in a heartbeat. And I would take him over Paul George, Jimmy Butler, LeBron James, any of them. But just, I thought, like I said, that was an interesting sort of article, and I'll give props to them. It was the Sixers Sense that did it. And I think to do it, absolutely. Just don't do it because you want to hurt the Knicks. All right. Flyers, there's still no Mishkov update. But with the timeline, there's not really a timeline. I could not find where I saw that. I guess they were just thinking with sort of... Okay, I think we're back. Nothing like a little technical difficulties when you're in a hurry today. But everything shut down on me. So as I was saying, so you might hear a little break in there. I'm not really sure. Well, I'll splice the videos together. So nothing's wrong. I don't know what happened there. But as I was saying, there is no Mishkov update. I think the timeline was more just so they could get ready for free agency and the draft. But that could happen at any time. I know the Flyers are hoping it's sooner rather than later, but we'll stay tuned for that. All right, today we're going to go back to 1959. And on this day in 1959, the Phillies lost to the Giants 3-0. Richie Ashburn got an infield hit in the 6th inning before the skies opened up and basically canceled the 6th inning. So what they did was they reverted it back to the 5th. Well, that meant now the Phillies were no hit because that infield single by Richie Ashburn was the first hit of the game. So Mike McCormick was credited with no hitting the Phillies. Fast forward now 32 years to 1991, and the Elias Sports Bureau determined that no hitters need to go a full 9 innings in order to be considered official. It essentially erased 26 previously official no hitters from the book. So officially in the books right now, that game against the Giants for the Phillies is a 3-0, 5-0 loss. The box score for the Phillies reads 0 runs, 0 hits, and 1 error. So they were no hit, but not officially. So if you're keeping score at home, that means they were no hit until they weren't. When Richie Ashburn got the homer or the infield single in the 6th inning. Then the rains came, reverted back to the 5th. They were no hit. 32 years later, they weren't. So they were no hit, they weren't no hit, they were no hit, and now they weren't no hit, even though they really were no hit. Keeping track of that at home because it is confusing. So officially, the Phillies lost on this day 3-0 to the Giants in a 5-inning rain-shortened game. A game in which they had no hits. However, because of the Elias Sports Bureau's ruling in 1991, it is not considered an official no-hitter. So take that one out of the books for the Phillies. But that happened on this day in 1959. And then finally today, our Phillies Memory Lane spotlight is Desi Relaford. And I can't even say his. I was going to mention at the end that he's one of those guys like Harry Kalas that I just really like. I cannot picture him. Not like his name is the way that, like, that's how Mickey Morandini's one. Desi Relaford's the other. But Desi Relaford was a utility man. He was a 4th-round free agent draftee of the Seattle Mariners. Kind of a utility man. He's played every position, I think, in the majors except for first base and catcher. But he was traded to the Phillies at the trade deadline in 1996 for Terry Mulholland. Then played 5 seasons for the Phillies from 96 to 2000. Hit .234, 9 homers, and 104 RBI, 51 doubles. For his career, though, he was much better than that. .243, 40 homers, 308 RBI in 11 years. Much better after he left Philly. He was traded to the Padres in August 2000 for the good old player to be named later, which would end up being David Newhon. Yeah, exactly. He was much better on defense than he was at the plate. But as I mentioned, this guy, he was sort of just one of those guys on those teams that weren't very good. But in my head, I just picture Harry Kalas. Every time I see his name, I read it in Harry Kalas's voice. Desi Relaford. But Desi Relaford is today's Phillies Memory Lane spotlight of the day. On this day in 1959, the Phillies were no hit by the Giants until they weren't. Richie Ashburn actually got a hit in the game that was taken off the books when the rain came, so it was an official no-hitter until 1991 when the Elias Sports Bureau said, no, you need to go 9 innings. So officially, they were not no-hit, even though they did not have a hit in the game. Make it make sense. I apologize for the technical difficulties. Hopefully, it comes through, but hey, this is what we do. We adapt, and we talk about it on Tuesdays all the time. Always forward, never straight. So we'll take a little detour. Still got the podcast out. Just might not be able to get my coffee at Wawa now, but that's okay. Let me know if you're panicking about JT being hurt and if the Phillies should explore backup catcher options. I'm right now, after seeing last night's game, I would be firmly in the let's see how it plays out sort of role because the team likes Stubbs. So I think bringing somebody else in, you might upset the apple cart a little bit with that. But let me know your thoughts. 267-495-8531 gets you in. Give me your thoughts on OG Anunoby, Sports Talk Radio, whatever you want. But be sure to listen to This Day in Philly Sports History every day for your intelligent sports talk fix of the day. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for June 12th, 2024. I'm Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Wednesday. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.